Good morning, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your first video blog of the day for Thursday, December 25th, 2014. Merry Christmas to everybody. And it's about close to 60 degrees in Billerica, Massachusetts. Overcast. Got some rain showers last night, but we did not get the 1 to 3 inches of rain they were predicting. We probably got a half an inch of rain, but that's okay. And it feels like more than a spring day. It doesn't feel like Christmas at all. There's no snow, there's no ice, there's no nothing. So it feels like a spring day. And the temperatures are going to be changing next week. We'll go back into winter time, and there's no storms on the horizon, but that will change. Some news to report. 5 NBA games today, starting at noontime on ESPN, ABC, and TNT. Christmas is basically when the NBA season really starts up. The interest of it. Christmas Day is like owned by the NBA with sports. They don't schedule any college football bowl games or the NHL, just out of respect. And that's about it on that. My first subject of the day is the continuation series of the top 10 greatest everything and anything. I've reached the top 10 greatest professional wrestling interview segments of all time. Some of these interview segments is usually with a wrestler. Mainly they were heels, and they would have a little interview segment with either faces or heels. And some of the most memorable moments out of these interview segments happen in pro wrestling history, and some of these interview segments were entertaining and stuff like that. And here are the top 10 of them. Number 10 on the all-time list of greatest professional wrestling interview segments of all time, The King's Court, hosted by Jerry the King Lawler. This happened on WWE Wrestling Challenge from May 1983 through, I think, the fall of 1993. Then it reappeared on Monday Night Raw in 1994. Jerry the King Lawler hosted it. He was a heel back then. He was a great interviewer. And, some great stuff happened on The King's Court, like when Owen Hart challenged Jerry the King Lawler to a match, and also when Doink turned face and stuff like that, and when Jerry the King Lawler attacked Duke the Dumpster Droese. Some entertaining things happen on the King's Court. I call it at number 10. Number 9 on the all-time list of the greatest interview segments in pro wrestling history, The Barbershop, hosted by Brutus the Barber Beefcake. This interview segment started in April of 1991 on Wrestling Challenge, lasted until February 1992. This was real interesting. Beefcake was coming back from a serious face injury, and he couldn't wrestle, so they had to give him an interview segment, and it was pretty decent, pretty entertaining. A couple most memorable things happened. The Rockers break up on it when Shawn Michaels throws Marty Jannetty through a plain glass door, and the ending of The Barbershop is when Sid Justice turned heel and destroyed the barbershop set. That comes in at number 9. Number 8 on the all-time list of greatest pro wrestling interview segments of all time, The Flower Shop, hosted by adorable Adrian Adonis. This started in May of 1986 and lasted through September 1986 on WWE Championship Wrestling, up like the forerunner to Superstars of Wrestling. This replaced Piper's Pit, and adorable Adrian Adonis had Jimmy Hart with him as a sidekick, and some great entertaining for interview segments on this. This is mainly The Flower Shop is known for the start of the infamous Hulk Hogan, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff heel feud, when adorable Adrian Adonis was agonizing Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, saying you're in Hogan's shadow and stuff, and it was pretty entertaining. Number 7 on the all-time list of the greatest professional wrestling interview segments of all time, The Snake Pit, hosted by Jake the Snake Roberts. This started in September 1986 on WWE Wrestling Challenge, and then it lasted until the fall of 1987 and moved over to WWE Superstars. Jake was a heel at first when this interview segment started, and he turned face during one of the Snake Pits when the Honky Tonk Man hit Jake the Snake Roberts over the head with a guitar. I thought that Snake was pretty interesting and stuff. Great interview segment, underrated in my opinion. Number 6 on the all-time list of greatest professional wrestling interview segments of all time, Funk Squirrel, which was on that NWA Power Hour for many months in 1989 and 1990 on WCW Worldwide. It was hosted by Terry Funk, and it was, a great interview segment. The NWA WCW weren't known for having interview segments, but I think this was pretty good. Funk is a great talker, so he had great interview. He was a great interviewer. Number 5 on the all-time list of greatest professional wrestling interview segments of all time, The Danger Zone, hosted by Paulie Dangerously. This was periodically on NWA and WCW on and off from 1989 to 1991. A decent interview segment by Paulie Dangerously, because the NWA, WCW weren't really big on like interview segments, but I think it was a great one and stuff like that. And it comes in at number 5. Number 4 on the all-time list of greatest professional wrestling interview segments of all time, Hype Central, hosted by the quintessential stun muffin, Joe Gertner on ECW Hardcore TV. This was a very good interview segment, and usually Joe Gertner interviewed many of the ECW heels. This lasted for a couple of years from 1995 to 1997. Then it was briefly revived, hosted by Lance Wright in 1997, but it only lasted a few weeks. It wasn't good as when Joe Gertner hosted it. It comes in at number 4. Number 3 on the all-time list of greatest professional wrestling interview segments of all time, The Body Shop, hosted by Jesse the Body Ventura. This lasted from the spring of 1985 through the summer of 1986 on WWE All-Star Wrestling. It was a great interview segment, and some interesting stuff were on there. Eventually, when Jesse the Body Ventura left the WWE for a brief time in the spring of 1986, the magnificent Don Muraco replaced him, but it wasn't as good as Jesse the Body Ventura. Number 2 on the all-time list of greatest professional wrestling interview segments of all time, The Brother Love Show. Bruce Pritchard, who was a WWE official, played the role of the televangelist wannabe Brother Love, saying, "I love you." He was an antagonizing interviewer. Some of the interview segments were pretty good. Some of the most memorable interviews happened on the Brother Love Show, and it lasted for about 2.5-3 years, from July 1988 through February 1991. First it was on Wrestling Challenge, but then it moved to WWE Superstars of Wrestling around the fall of 1988, and it was a great interview segment. It ended in the late winter of 1991 when the Ultimate Warrior attacked Brother Love to end his career on WWE television for the Brother Love Show. In reality, Bruce Pritchard was going through some rough times, and they needed to write him off television. He actually left the WWE for a couple of years because he was battling drug abuse and stuff, but he cleaned this up as his act. And then the Brother Love Show reappeared briefly on WWE Monday Night Raw in 1995. That comes in at number 2. And the number 1 greatest interview segment in pro wrestling history of all time, Piper's Pit. Piper's Pit was hosted by Rowdy Piper. It lasted from the winter of 1984 through the spring of 1986 on WWE Championship Wrestling, and it got revived again on WWE Superstars of Wrestling for about 6 months in 1986-1987 timeline, and periodically pops up once in a while. Piper is the best one of the best interviewers of all time. When he was a heel, especially when he was a heel, these were classic Piper's Pits. Very, very entertaining, especially the most famous Piper Pit of all time, when Piper hit Jimmy Superfly Snuka with coconut. That was legendary. That started off the Piper Snuka feud, and these Piper's Pits were amazing stuff, especially when Piper agonized a lot of the faces. This was probably the best interview segment of all time in professional wrestling of all time, and can't reduplicate that. And that's about it on that. And back today for 2 more video blogs. The first one will be about 10 business predictions 2015, and the person I profiled ending the legendary Dallas sports pro athlete of all time, pitcher Nolan Ryan. See you later, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Merry Christmas again. Bye.